Ladies and gentlemen, Hell22 here in the headquarters with Murmaider, and we are honored to have an interview tonight with Dan Klyne, who is the mastermind of our October band of the month, Appalachian Winter. So first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to answer some questions about your work, and we greatly appreciate it.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you for having me today. I'll happily take any opportunity. You're granting me an opportunity just to, talk about my favorite thing, myself.
So, what are some of the bands that influenced you to become a musician and songwriter? Specifically, what led you into metal?
Influence. That's a difficult question for me to answer. I find my influences to be nebulous. I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so, when I came to popular music in the early to mid-90s, bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana were in heavy rotation on the radio. I guess I really started wanting to be like a rock musician because of bands like that. In fact, my favorite band of the time was Live. I still think they have done excellent music, especially back then, and they really made me want to be a rock musician. I always had some notion in my head that I wanted to play musical instruments. I can remember back when I was 5 or 6 wanting to learn how to play piano. Wanting to be a musician, I think, has always been a part of me. But when I finally started playing guitar back in '95, it was, it was because of what was popular at the time. What really started me in metal, though, was Metallica's Black album, which was also in pretty heavy rotation on the radio back in the early to mid '90s. After hearing a couple of their songs, I went out and bought the album, and it was all I could listen to for the next better part of 6 weeks. That was all I had playing. I was so blown away by it. I had heard, nothing like it before. The impression that album made on me was, I can't describe it. I really can't. I actually didn't feel like that again for a long, long time. I mean, some time passed, and I was listening to other stuff, and I was getting into, things like Radiohead and bands like Travis and such. But I happened to pick up an album by Dimmu Borgir way the hell back in 2001, and they do the pretentious album titling now. It was puritanical, misanthropic. It's the bluish one that has like the torso of the chick with the tits and the barbed wire. That was the album, and that blew my fucking brains out again. As far as music is concerned, I was absolutely amazed. They were doing things with a symphonic orchestra and with this really intense kind of heavy metal. That really was kind of a turning point. That was when I knew stuff like that was what my goal in life was to do. Maybe not exactly in their flavor. I actually found Dimmu to be a gateway into other stuff. Like I had things blow my balls off after that. Like I can remember, the first Falkenbach album I ever got, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of it. It was one of the funny titled ones. It had the same effect on me as the Black album. I could not stop listening to it. I enjoyed it so much, and bands now that I really take my cues from are Ensiferum, Moon Sorrow. I think Moon Sorrow's my favorite right now. They have been for a while. I'm trying to think who else. Klyne. I love those guys. I like I like all kinds of music, but definitely my favorite stuff is folk metal, black metal. So I guess that's where I stand now musically. I've actually ever since the early 2000s I've been listening to this stuff, and I'm not getting sick of it yet. I got sick of bands back in the 90s, and this stuff just it keeps rocking my world. I love it, and I'm ashamed of myself for not finding it sooner.
Coming from Pennsylvania, what is the significance of the name Appalachian Winter? Where did you come up with it? What does it mean to you?
When I named my project the way I did, when I started calling what I was doing Appalachian Winter, I was a lot more ignorant than I should have been to how pervasive themes of nature and winter were in black metal. I knew I was following a kind of a sub-trend in the black metal subgenre, but I was really unaware of how many other people were doing it. And I do regret it a bit now, although I still think the name's cool and I'm not going to change it. Appalachian Winter is what this stuff is going to be from my first album to whenever I decide to hang up my hat as far as this stuff is concerned, which probably won't be anytime soon. But part of the significance of the name was I started this out as the goal was to do black metal, to do melodic black metal with keyboards and bells and whistles and shit like that. But that was the goal. I didn't expect the genre I do to shift as much as it did to have maybe the core of black metal, but have all this other stuff piled on top. So part of the name was I wanted it to be the signifier of a black metal band. But that's not the whole significance. I mean, you have Appalachian Winter, which is nature, winter. That stuff we've all heard a million times before. But I did choose it, and I think you may have suspected it with the way you worded your question. I did choose it because it is my immediate environment. I live in the Ridge and Valleys province of the Appalachian Mountains. I'm right up against the Allegheny Front, which is another big landmark in the Appalachian Mountain. And I love it. And I'm not going to ever apologize for it. I live in the part of Pennsylvania where we get a nice Appalachian twang that's a bit similar to places further south, but we also get a little bit of the Pittsburgh Yinzer accent, and I love both of them. I wouldn't trade them for the world. So this bit of regionalism also comes into the album title. I love where I live, and I want to write music about it. That's basically my goal.
In his review, Murmaider described your sound as a mix between progressive black metal and symphonic metal with a little bit of folk sprinkled on top. How would you describe your music to someone who hasn't heard it before?
Well, it's a good question because I do not have a habit of referring to my own music to anyone who hasn't heard it before. I prefer to just sit back and let people come to me. I don't market. I don't ever plan to market. I think a lot of it's lame and counterproductive. I mean, those are just my opinions. But when I'm thinking about it to myself, if I absolutely have to put a label on it, I just say black metal. But then again, I don't think I really have a right to contextualize myself. I'd rather have Murmaider, write the description he did. I like his description. I think I'll just adopt that and use that if someone holds my feet to the fire. But I don't really feel it's within my rights to contextualize myself. I think really as a musician, my responsibility is just to be and to do what I do and not worry so much about classifications. Other people can classify me, and they can probably do a much better job than I ever could. I think Murmaider's done a better job than I ever could. So we'll stick with his description. We'll say a mix between progressive black metal and symphonic metal with a little bit of folk sprinkled on top.
Being the lone member of a band must present both challenges and benefits. What is the recording process like for Appalachian Winter? How do you go through the writing and production as a one-man band?
You are right. There are challenges and benefits, and for me, they seem to go hand in hand. I mean, one of the biggest benefits is I don't have to depend on anyone else to make music. I can do it all myself. And also, you don't have to really hammer out a song with anybody else. You don't have to compromise your vision. Although, yeah, that's where the two-way thing comes in, because you also, as a solo artist, don't have readily available anyone to bounce ideas off of. Although with Appalachian Winter, I do still kind of have that, because I have a couple of friends who will happily listen to an idea I'm having trouble with, and they will offer wisdom on it. They'll offer very concise and good wisdom on it. I have a friend who hasn't made a bad recommendation to me yet on what to do with a song. But when it comes to writing and recording music, actually those two processes are kind of one and the same for me. I record as I write, just simply because I can't read music. I'd rather just record it and know it that way. But I also write as I record. When I actually go to do the final product, I'll get the basic tracks down, and then I'll improvise over them until I find something I like, and that becomes the final cut then. Although I usually don't need to improvise too much, just because even though I can't read music, I do know music theory pretty solidly. So writing isn't really difficult for me, and Sonar makes recording a lot easier for me. I don't have to be an audio engineer to have a record that sounds like it's decently produced and mastered. Yes, there are weaknesses. There are things with the double bass drum sound I don't like. There's other weaknesses, but I deal with them, and the product is what it is. Actually, my recording secret is Sonar has a lot of presets that I find very useful, both in adding effects and mastering. I am not an audio engineer. I'm probably never going to be one. So I need Sonar for my stuff to sound as polished as it does. And for my stuff to sound polished is still quite a difficult task, just because a lot of my playing sucks. But yeah, there's my basic writing and recording production process.